Hey, you guys, this is Ashley.
And this is Liz, and welcome to the Besties and the Books podcast.
Hey,
guys!
Welcome, welcome!
So we have a very special spoiler-free episode for you all today. We are going to be doing an interview with Ember Nicole, and we are so excited. So, if you guys have been following us for any amount of time, you've heard me talk about it before. She's the author of her brand new book, Live for Me, which is book 3 in the Broken Bounty series. So you guys have definitely heard me and probably seen me call these out before. So Break for Me, and then Survive for Me, so books 1 and 2. So we'll be discussing kind of the series as a whole a little bit today, but then also with a focus on Live for Me, which is out now on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. So that's so exciting. I'm really excited to order my paperback copy.
Yeah.
To make my collection complete.
Yeah.
So, just so you guys know, author interviews are actually spoiler-free. So that way it can kind of give you an idea of what to expect. You can learn a little bit about Ember, about the authors that we interview. That way you can see if it's something that would interest you to read moving forward. So you don't have to have read these before. You don't have to worry about us spoiling them for you. You can just kind of listen and follow along and have a good time with us. But before we get into that, we just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you guys so much for being here today and taking time out of your book to tune on in and listen to what we have to say and everything that Ember Nicole has to say in this video. Ooh. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast, including YouTube. There's a fun little video going on over there. So you go check us out there at Besties in the Books podcast, and as well as Instagram and TikTok. And don't forget to follow Ember Nicole. She's at embernicole.author on Instagram. So give her a little follow there. And thank you guys. Seriously, thank you so much for tuning in to us today.
That way we could do this. We could interview authors. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Should we just do it? Should we bring her on?
Let's introduce her.
Okay. So we're bringing on Ember Nicole, the creator of some of the most immersive, in my opinion, action-packed contemporary dark romance available. I think that so I actually discovered Ember's books through a PR company that I was reading arcs for, and now I'm on her permanent PR team because I just love them so much, because I just feel like they read so in depth with character development. You just get sucked in, but they also have so much amazing action that just keeps the pages turning for you. So I'm fully addicted. But just a little bit of background on Ember. So she lives in Indiana, where she collects the tears of her readers and displays them in jars on her library shelves. She wrote her first book on her notes app on her phone, which I feel like Ashley and I can relate to, because we do all of our lives pretty much on our notes app on our phone.
Yeah.
Ember loves to read horror, but hates horror movies, has more coffee flowing through her veins than blood, which again, I think we can relate to a little bit too, and admits freely that spite fuels nearly everything she does at this point. And I found that particular comment or tidbit, whatever you want to call it, extra hilarious, because to quote the acknowledgments for Live for Me, which I noticed when I was reading this, quote, "This book and its sequel were born of pure feminine rage, heartbreak, and pain." And when I read that, I was like, I think we can relate to that, especially right now. Welcome, Ember.
Welcome.
We're so glad to have you. So glad.
There's an awful lot of praise in there, and for as much as I like to talk about kinks and write about kinks, I'm not very good at accepting it, so consider yourselves warned. I'm here for it, but I'll get really weird.
I think it's hard to hear other people talking about your accolades or whatever you want to call them.
It's so weird.
Yeah,
but
it's so very strange.
I mean, but you deserve it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We are so grateful to have you here.
Yeah. And congratulations on the 3rd book in this series. Ooh, my
you go.
goodness.
It feels
know.
weird. It's nice and weird to be 3 deep into something that everybody acts like they care about and they're really excited about, and they bothered me for literally the last year about getting it out faster than I was. So that was really nice and very stressful.
I'm
Sorry,
sure.
I probably contributed to that too. Like, hey, when is this coming out? Like, hey, just checking in. When's this coming out? Now I'm already like, hey, like, when are we going to get your next book? Like, I need another book now. So
No,
sorry.
No joke, because the voice message that you sent me to prepare for this, it was probably the funniest one that I got, because it was so professional and it was so calm and collected. And she's like, here, Ashley's going to be sending you this stuff about the tech side of it, and I'm going to be sending you this stuff about the map of it all. And by the way, I'm really mad at you, but also we're gonna keep moving, and we're gonna talk about it for how much time. And it was great, just because so calm, still so mad, so much rage. Let's just keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm like laying there in bed next to my husband. I just finished reading the book, and I was like, okay, stay chill for a second, because we got to touch base. So yeah, I was like, take care of the business stuff. And then I'm like, I got to send her a voice memo to let her know that this killed me, this ending. I'm like, oh my God, we have to talk about it immediately. So, I mean, but that's what we want. We want our books to make us feel things.
To like rip out our souls and like make us feel something. And you do that.
That's my purpose in life.
Good.
That's awesome.
Mission
That's an
is
amazing
being
purpose.
accomplished.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Totally.
Keep it coming, baby.
So
No
so should
pressure.
we get in? I know, no pressure, right? We're just gonna all
No
be
pressure.
in
Not at
your
all. Not at
DMs, like right after this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we just get into our official interview questions? You guys ready?
Well, yeah. So first up, so Liz and I like to do like a bit of a fave and fail, usually of the week. Sometimes we do it themed. So for our author interviews, we like to really put you guys on the spot and have you give a fave and fail. And this one being about Broken Bounty, the series. So what was like the best part and the worst part of the process of writing this book?
This book, honestly, the worst part was the fact that it was wildly emotional for me. I mean, you two have read it, so I've heard from both of you, I feel like, that it was wildly emotional for you. On the writing side of it, the emotions would get to me, and they come from some terrible, deep, dark place inside of me that I would get caught there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to come back from that. So I would write, and then I would just end up in this depressive episode that was, you just feel like you're trapped there. And I was like, man, I can't keep getting caught there, and figure out how to get back out of it to keep moving the story forward. So that for sure was the hardest part, trying to navigate coming back from it to keep writing without it just being a depressing book overall.
The balance, that's huge.
Some people say I was depressing overall just because they're mad at me and they want to hurt me, but it's fine. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
But the highlight of it easily was Utah just by himself, because he's Utah. We love the man, and I'm here to worship the man, because good grief, I don't know, he was the balance of it, I suppose is the way to say that.
Yeah.
He was the light of it. He was the fun to write. He keeps it all together for the entire book. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit of a rock for you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's
Is
awesome.
that like, okay, so I have to just, this is like not an official interview question, but I have to know just from like what you just said, like, do you feel like it's weird that, like, obviously you're working through your own stuff as you're writing the story, and that's why it's emotional, for probably so many different reasons. But is it kind of weird to know that the light of the book, which, you know, you describe as being Utah, he's the rock, the one that centers us and grounds us through this story. Like, you also created him, though. So he is also you.
I did.
Oh.
Yeah. You know? Like, is that, like, a really weird thing to think about? Or, like, how does that feel?
It's, well, yes and no. I could say I created him, but I can only to some extent, I guess I would say. There are parts of all of these characters that I think if you know who I am in real life, you're like, oh, that's the actual person. That's not the author personality that everybody sees online. And then there are I'm not sure how to even go about wording that there are parts of other people that make their way into these characters as well. So he's not so much me. He's something that I feel like especially if you're one of us style readers, he's the thing that we all want and the thing that we all need in real life. And it's easy for me to sit here from like a Memphis perspective and say, this is the kind of human that I need. So here he is, and I'm creating him for all of us. And that way, sure, he's part of me in that sense, but I don't function like Utah does in any way.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that, though, because I always wonder, like, kind of like what the process is of creating these, like, I feel like that's one of the things, in my opinion, that you do the best is create these really complex characters that we get really invested in. And so, I was just curious to ask that. I thought
I am also very invested in them, so I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you tell us? I'm like, did I already space it out? Did you tell us what your favorite part about writing the series was so far, this book?
Utah.
Yeah, Utah. Okay, so that's how we went.
Utah.
Okay, so we went full circle, and then I just got distracted. Okay, great. So what should people expect if they're thinking about reading the Broken Bounty series in general? So I did want to differentiate between the fact that books 1 and 2 are different from book 3. So like when people are looking to pick these up, what would you say to expect from books 1 and 2? And then what would you say to expect from book 3?
So for me, especially from the writing side of it, books 1 and 2 are, I feel like, more like reading. It's like reading an action movie. It's fast paced. It's supposed to feel like, this is happening, but wait, this is also happening, but this is also happening, and you don't get to breathe anywhere from beginning to end with the first book, especially. And then the second book picks up with the same kind of pace, even though our characters are separated for unknown reasons because spoiler free. So for the first 2, you're thrown straight into these characters very quickly. There's chemistry from the start for the 2 of them. It's almost purely physical because they hate each other. It's like enemies to lovers on cocaine. Like they're all about it. That's Jersey and Trista. That's the first 2 books. It's all just action. It's nonstop. They're like the same person, these 2 main characters. So they're butting heads over everything endlessly. And then the giant difference to shift into book 3 is that the best way to describe that is saying that they're absolutely nothing like the first 2 main characters. It's not an action movie in a writing form. It's just most of this book you're spent inside the heads of these other characters. They're not doing a lot of things. It's not a cross-country battle road trip style thing where they're fighting in somebody's car from beginning to end. They're just doing regular things because these two need almost an entire book to know each other before the story can move forward, because that's who our female main character is. She's very reserved, she's very inward, she's very, very cautious about everything. So it takes her a whole ass book to decide, okay, we can keep doing things.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. Like, I feel like a lot. Like I said, I love the character development in all your books. I feel like I related particularly well to Jersey Boy and Trista. Just their completely, like, I don't want to say, like, just a tumultuous relationship, right? Like,
It was.
yeah.
Very much up and down.
Very up and down. I feel like I can relate a lot to that. And so this was completely, like, reading book 3 lived for me, and getting to know Utah and Memphis was, I don't want to say kind of a breather, because not really, because I feel like
it was a change of pace.
It was a change of pace, but there was still so much to dive into with the character development and the personalities, and that was so real, like, and very relatable too.
Yes. The third book, where, like I said, the first 2 are just one thing after another, and it's never ending, and you feel like you can't stop and breathe. This one is 1,000 tiny moments that really aren't that big, but feel like they're supposed to mean something way bigger, just because every bit of it is emotional versus a physical fight.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like the tiny moments as opposed to just like, yeah, it's almost like I was trying to describe it to my husband, like books 1 and 2, you know, and I'm like, you know, that show that you like, Reacher, it kind of is like that kind of pace. I'm like, that's how books 1 and 2 were. And then, you know, like to keep it spoiler free, I mean, it definitely starts amping up towards the end of book 3 as well. And I'm like, oh, I can see where this is going. I can see it's stressing me out, but like in a good way, you know?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, book 4 picks back up, but these two needed an entire book to get back to that point, so.
Yeah.
Yes, but I feel like emotionally charged. Like,
So,
well, not like physically, well, there's some physical, you know, but like, you know, not like the action packed, but emotionally charged. And I could definitely relate to her character as well, too. And the guards that she has up and the walls that she has up, and seeing her go through the process was beautiful. What a beautiful job you did, like creating these complex characters and giving them their own space and adjusting the pacing and the vibes of the story while still keeping it the same world. So great job with that.
Yeah, and
Thank you. I'm glad you can't see my face.
aw, and engaging. I think that's the other thing too, is like it's just as engaging, just in a different way. And I think that is really unique accomplishment too.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's incredibly difficult to do, and not everybody is able to pull it off, and you definitely did. So
Thank you. I'll say that's why it took an entire year to get around to this one. So
yeah.
We'll run with that. That was the reason.
Yeah. And I'm on the camp of like, you know, take as much time as you need, because these things take time and they process, and it's as much as we're ready for the next one, like we want it to be perfect too. So yeah. All right. So let's talk about how you came up with the idea of the Broken Bounty series, and was there anything in particular that inspired you to start writing it?
So the fun part for me is all of the things that I end up writing start as this one very specific moment that plays over and over again in my head like a movie. And I mean, I can see every single bit of it in my mind. And the very difficult part is it usually starts as a dream that I have had. I have very vivid dreams and very vivid nightmares. And so that I take that moment and think about it relentlessly for days on end. And I'm like, how do I turn it into something more than that? And it starts with this scene, and then whoever's in it, whatever characters there are. I don't know who they are. I don't know their names. I have to figure out what they have done to put them in that place. And I have to figure out where they're going or why they're in this place and what they're trying to do next. So I literally get a starting scene that's actually usually dead center of a book, and I build forward and back from it to try to figure out what's happened. And it's kind of terrible to try to piece it together that way, but it's how every single one has started. This one, the series with Break for Me, started with the scene. How do I do this spoiler free? The scene where she gets picked up at her motel room and put into a trunk.
Put into the trunk. It's such a classic, iconic scene.
Yeah.
It is. And I start with, write the snappy sheet. So I start with this in my mind. I start with this woman who thinks she's getting ready for a date, and she's so excited, and she's all dressed to the nines. And then it's like, oh, here we're gonna have a fight. And that's literally the scene that played over and over again. I was like, who is this girl? Who's this guy? Who's knocking at the door and just snatching her up and putting her in her trunk? And that's where it all landed. And I ended up going the route that I did because I didn't want it. This is going to sound really mean, and I don't mean it to be this way. Please be aware of that. Let me just start off and preface it with that way. I didn't want it to just be another stalker kidnapper kind of book. So it had to be something. It had to be something where he's not just there showing up and saying, I'm going to kidnap this girl and I'm going to keep her for myself. So we landed where we did with this entire series that was born out of it.
Super cool. Whoa. That's awesome.
I know. I'm like, that is really cool. Just like getting these ideas and then, but yeah, just having to like figure out logically like how that, you know, quote unquote random idea would like make sense like in the grand scheme of a book.
Yeah.
Yes. it's kind of rough, especially when you're starting something new and you're not like, well, I don't know where this is actually supposed to be going.
Yeah.
You just have this one scene and you got to turn it into something.
Dude.
So it took you about a year. Excuse me, sorry. It took you about a year to write Live For Me. So how long did it take you to write the other two, like books 1 and 2?
I blasted through those like they were nothing. I think I had Break For Me probably ready to go within maybe 3 months.
Crazy.
And then it came out of me like a volcano, like it just exploded. There was no stopping that one. And the second one, I think I want to say it released. That's pretty bad. I don't remember my own release dates.
That's okay.
They came out basically a couple months apart at most. And it didn't take me any longer really to write the second one, regardless of what was in it. But yeah, the third one that made everybody super angry because I was like, oh, here are these 2 books within a month of each other and you don't have to live with that cliffhanger for very long. And then I'm like, here's your 3rd book a year later and you're mad at me all over again for a cliffhanger. So.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, cliffhanger central over here.
Cliffhangers everywhere.
I love it, personally.
I do too. Yeah.
Because I love that. I love feeling the craziness, when I'm done with a book. Like, oh my God, I feel crazy. I love thinking about it for the next however long it takes for the next one to come out.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. You might be the only 2, but that's good.
Well, I don't love when I read a book that like, oh, okay, I could continue or not. No, I need to continue all these. So
Yes.
I appreciate that.
I would be so insulted if nobody cared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just amping that up. You're just, you're making us extra pumped for the next one. So did you self-publish the Broken Bounty series? Like, tell us about your process with that.
Yeah, it's a nightmare being an indie author, but yes, everything is self-published. Everything I've done self-published. It wasn't even an option to try to go any other route just because my regular life is busy. I have a family. I have a regular full-time job in addition to this, and the thought of having to do it on somebody else's schedule made me want to hurt people, and let's just not do that. So yes, independently publishing was absolutely the only option, and if we're gonna dive into that and be honest about it, I really thought I would write one whole book and publish it just to get the story out of me and disappear back into nothing, and then everybody loved that, and then I had to stick around, so
yeah,
here we are.
Dude,
All
what
these
an
books later.
accomplishment. I've heard how hard it is to self-publish, so way to go.
It's not easy. Thank you.
So with that said, nice segue into, have you always been a writer, even if not always publishing your own work?
Yeah, I started really, I think, writing things that actually made sense in middle school, and it wasn't anything like this, thank God, because I was very young. But if you're my parents, they might actually think it was worse, because what I actually started was more on the horror side, and I think that probably would bother people, because those did truly come straight from those nightmares that I mentioned earlier. So so yeah, I have always written. I never used to write with the intent of publishing anything. The catalyst that changed it is that I have a best friend that has read everything I've ever written in real life, and she read the first book that I ended up publishing, but she just read it to read it, because that's just kind of what she and I do. And as soon as she read it, she told me everybody else everywhere else needed to read it as well, and they needed to have access to it. So she's really the one that gets the credit for deciding for that. Here's that shove straight into self-publishing. So
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Sometimes that's what we need. We need the person from the outside to look at our work or whatever from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I never would have done it if it was just me doing it by myself. There's no way.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to take that leap, for sure. With that said, before Broken Bounty series, do you have any other works that have been published?
I do. I have 2 others. I've got... Here you go. It's like I was reading this. So they're called My Brother's Problem and My Sister's Solution. It's not like a stepbrother, stepsister. It's not none of that happening. We don't have actual relations happening between brother or sister at all in any sense. They are the first book is a childhood friends to lovers. It's a brother's best friend thing. The second book picks up in the other. It takes on the brother's perspective, and then it's a sister's best friend thing. So
cool.
it's you get the same 4 characters through both books basically as the main characters. The first book is by far the darkest thing I have ever done. It is the darkest I will ever do. And if you're going to dive into that, just be careful is what I'm going to say there, because yikes. I don't know that a lot of people know those exist, because I don't really advertise them much, just because they're messed up and they're hard for me. So I know they're hard.
Oh,
for
but
other
I know
people.
some people are adding to cart right now, adding to Kindle. So we'll make sure to link
I
those
do too.
down in the
It doesn't
description
matter.
box for everybody.
But
Yeah.
it is wild. The harder I try to say stay away from that, the harder everybody pushes toward it. It's wild.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're dark romance readers. It's like, we'll do our due diligence, like check the TWs, like we all know that. But like most of us, like we're like, we acknowledge, okay, and then we move on, and we dive in,
We acknowledge, and that's all we're gonna do with it, and then we're gonna dive in anyway.
So do you, like, what are your, like, top favorite authors, like, for yourself? Like, what do you enjoy reading? Like, what are your favorite books?
My favorite of all time, I started Stephen King when I was in middle school, and I have clung to him. There are he's got like 3 shelves worth of books behind him sitting here. It's just, I live for the man. If he could write a grocery list, and I'm going to read it. So.
Awesome. So I have to ask then, because I also love Stephen King. So what is your, like, if you had to pick a favorite Stephen King, like, what would it be?
The Stand, hands down. It's not even...
Yeah.
I don't even have to think about it. I read that one in high school, and that has been over a decade ago for me. And I still think about those characters. Like, I see so many of them just plain as day, and I still think about the moments that happen in that book. So, and I mean, I think about all of his stuff a lot, but that one is just forever present in my mind. So it is The Stand easily for me.
Yeah, that's so good. Like, I picked that up because I was trying to get back into fiction during the lockdown pandemic, and I had no idea what The Stand was about, and I was like, oh, this is long and could help me get back into fiction, so I'm just gonna read this. Crack it open, I'm like, this is really about a pandemic. Okay, here we go.
You cracked it open, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm living this. Am I about to have a nightmare? Yes.
But it's so good. It's like, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So do you have any other favorite authors or books that you want to shout out, or like, do you just want to stick on that note?
I will always take the chance to direct everybody to, we have a, what we all like to call our emotionally codependent author foursome. And it is my indie author crowd that I have clung to from the start, and they cling to me just as hard. So, if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me bother her relentlessly. Her name's Elle Mitchell. She is the other half of what we like to call Team Black Sheep, because she and I get into a lot of trouble together. She writes what I also like to make fun of her and call small town sadness. She does a lot of that. She does a lot of that. She's also heavy on the trigger warning side. She just released another duet that's more dark romance than it is just regular small town sadness. I think those two are a rock star romance.
Oh,
so
cool.
She's got that side covered. I've got Rose Cedar that does college hockey. And all of those people are in so much pain that it might as well also be dark romance.
Were there any themes that you put into this book that are just like extra meaningful to you?
Honestly, from the Memphis perspective, again, just kind of to bounce off of what we just went through, the fact that there's still a person out there who can see the things that you hate about yourself the most and take those and say, cut it out and stop that and quit being that way, because you're being meaner to you than anybody else would ever be or could ever be.
Yeah.
And that person can see those things and still think that you put the whole damn moon in the sky is... That's what I wanted to take out of it, honestly, is here's the ugly thing, here's the gross thing, here's what I don't like about me. Here's this person who's going to love every bit of that much harder just because I need it that way.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
So there's Utah to do all of that for us, because we all deserve one of them.
Yeah, I mean, when I was kind of thinking about, the reasons why these books resonated so much with me and the themes, I think the two that I wrote down were quote unquote broken people not being codependent but helping heal each other. And I think that's one of the reasons why I identified so closely with Trista and Jersey's relationship, because, I put here complex relationships that may look quote unquote unconventional from the outside, but truly bring you back to life. And to me, like that is like one of the most meaningful themes that I've gotten out of reading these books. That's why I'm extra excited to see where Utah and Memphis go, because I feel like we're sticking with, it's different relationship, but we're sticking with similar themes, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. There's a lot of, all I do is broken people and deciding that they deserve love anyway. So you're pretty much on track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the amount that I cried, particularly in book 2, I'm like, I feel like, yes, I blame you for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So again, to kind of switch gears a little bit, we just have to ask. So, like, why specifically, and you kind of talked about this, obviously, with, like, you dreaming of, a scene and then kind of, like, working out from there. But why bounty hunters? Like, was that part of the dream, or is that something that you figured out to, like, rationalize the scene?
Yeah. So, that was part of it that I had to figure out. I had no idea why that man was at the door. I had no idea why he was putting her in the trunk of his car. And I sort of hinted at it earlier that I didn't want him to just be a stalker. And I don't mean that like, hey, you can't read your stalker romances, or these stalker books shouldn't be read, all this, none of that. I don't care at all what anybody reads. I just wanted it to be something else. Yeah. I needed it to be a deeper purpose. I didn't want it to just be this book where this guy's just obsessed with this girl for no reason. They hated each other from the start for some reason, and he needed to spend an absurd amount of time with her against his will to decide that he actually wanted to keep her for himself.
Yeah.
So I had to come up with what could he possibly be doing? Why would he ever be there if he doesn't like her and he doesn't want her? Why is he taking her and keeping her?
Yeah.
For a whole cross-country trip. So, and it smacked me right out of nowhere that it was like, oh my God, he's a bounty hunter. Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
He's not just a regular stalker. He's getting paid to do it.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I loved that because it was incredibly unique. Like, I didn't know what to expect going into it. Like I said, I got this as an arc originally, and I was like, well, let's see. Like, I was reading it because I like dark romance, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. Like, I've never read anything like it before.
And I don't read a lot of dark romance just for fun, but I don't know of another bounty hunter series that's out there. I'm sure there is one. It wouldn't surprise me. We all end up having to share the same tropes and the same basic themes, it seems like, at some point. But I don't know of any other bounty hunter series, so I was really excited when it was like, oh, there's the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, and you even like go and you build on top of the world. It's even more than a bounty hunter. Like, there's a whole system involved. It's so intricate.
Yes.
It's so cool.
Yes.
And it's easy to be in that world.
With every book.
Definitely.
No, it's part of like a whole complex organization. So it's like, it's a level, I think, of world building that doesn't really exist in a lot of dark romance books, in my opinion. As a dark romance book reader, like, I like that it's like we get to go back behind the scenes and figure out like what are all these interworkings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's that is exactly what I wanted out of it. I didn't want it to just be the simple, here's the baseline plot and I'm going to throw smut on top of it and we're going to call it dark romance. I wanted there to be something so much deeper that meant so much more underneath it all. So here we are. Bounty hunters. Bounty hunters who don't want to be bounty hunters anymore because gross. And they're actually terrible people.
Okay, so let's dish. Is there going to be a sequel to book 3? I know we kind of already talked about it, but let's make it officially clear.
It is. Yes. Book 4 is happening. It's still being written. It's there's no backing out of it now. Nope. I can't just say like, oh, sorry, I left that cliffhanger.
Imagine.
I'm gonna retire. No, they would be storming the cornfields to find me if I didn't finish this story.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't have a release date for it. I am really excited about it. Just in the sense that I know what version of these characters you guys get to meet next, and I cannot wait. I really enjoyed the softer aspect of this third book. I really did, because I don't do a lot of soft characters. I don't do a lot of like, oh, look at these adorable little precious moments. And I did a lot of that in the third book. But you're going to see Memphis kind of has her Phoenix moment at the end of the third book, and she's sort of transforming into something else. And you kind of get to watch Utah dive really hard into, how do I say this and keep it clean as possible? You get to see him dive really hard into, I'm going to turn into hardcore pleasure dom, and I'm going to be the one in charge as long as it's behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Start. Never mind. Just end this interview right now. Go back to your computer. Start writing. Because that's the thing, is like, the reason I love Jersey is because he's just so broken, and he's so grumpy. He's so in charge. He's just, he's the grumpy, in charge, older guy. That's my type. And so watching Utah, like, as you say, like, kind of step more into that dom role, like, I'm here for it all day long. I cannot wait.
Yes. You're going to see him embrace that really hard. He gets real big and real bossy. The bigger that Memphis feels like she gets, he sticks it out really hard. And
Heyo.
I cannot wait.
Sorry, a lot of heyos in there.
I love it.
I cannot wait.
So
Yes, book 4 is
I'm so
happening.
excited. Yay! Okay, so what do people in real life think about, you writing these books, the dark romance that you are writing? Just tell us about how that goes.
I stay 1,000,000% anonymous, so I don't involve my real world people in any sense, outside of that best friend that I mentioned earlier. We have been friends for 3 decades, so she is kind of just on a different level. She exists out there in the world by herself, in my own mind. She knows everything there is to know about me, so this felt like something that was going to keep being shared with her, because she was reading what I was writing before I was publishing, so it just was a part of our regular evolution to our friendship.
Yeah.
And if she was going to suggest that I publish it, I was going to take her along with me. But that is as far as it goes into my real world, just because my real world, I work with my entire family. We have the same business. We all live within walking distance of one another in real life. Like, we're very close knit. Everything we do together. This is something that's just mine. And I want it to stay just mine. Along that sense, I've got kids, and I don't ever want them to be affected by what I do here, because there are some not very nice people who have some very not nice thoughts out in the world when it comes to dark romance writers. So I would rather them not ever have to pay any price over what it is that I've decided I'm doing. They should get to have their own lives, and staying anonymous about it feels like the way to do that. So.
Yeah, and that's so commendable.
I have the one
for
friend.
Sure. Yeah, because in this day and age where everybody puts everything out there, it's good to know when to not. So, good for you.
Yes. And I to not. Very hardcore.
For anyone who, isn't watching the YouTube video but is perhaps listening, Ember chooses to wear a mask anytime that she's facing camera, whether it be on social media or, as you said, like also in in-person events here on the podcast. How, I guess I kind of wonder, like, when you were first kind of getting on social media and stuff for the book, like, how did you decide that that's how you were going to address that? Like, wanting to stay anonymous? Were you just like, oh, I'll just wear a mask? Or did it just, like, how did that happen?
No, there was never a moment where I thought I would have to show my face, and I never thought I was going to. When I first started posting, I think it was Instagram is where I got started. When I first started posting things, it was just strictly books. And then when I started to interact with people, my absurd personality came out, and everybody thought the chaos was just as funny as could be, because that is absolutely who I am in real life, and there's no holding it back. So I started getting these invitations to do podcasts, and I would get invitations to, like, hey, will you get on TikTok with us and go live, and will you do this with us? And I was like, oh man. And then I got invited to an event, and I would obviously have to do that in person. So The only mask or the only way I had to cover my face at the time was this. So it wasn't even like I went out and bought this for this purpose. I had this
just
absurd
laying
purge
around,
mask
you know,
As you do.
in my possession.
as
and
we,
I
you know,
was
we have
like,
stuff like that too.
As we all do. Yes.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just have
Of
a purge
course.
mask in your house? So yeah, if it had been some other mask, I would be using some other mask. But this is just what I had, and now that this is the one that everybody realizes seems to be associated with me, and like I told you guys beforehand, right ahead of time, I had to go out and find myself 4 or 5 extras just to have spares, because I only had this one to take with me to those in-person events, and I thought, oh man, what if it just breaks? Am I just done for the weekend? So now I have spares, and this is the one that it will continue to be.
That's awesome. It's so cool. It's so cool. I can't get over it.
Well, it's a really unique way that I think really goes with your theme as an author to like portray yourself, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And this way everybody gets to interact with the nonsense.
Yeah, that way we get to do this. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So
Good job. Thank you for finding a way.
Yeah, exactly. We appreciate it. So specifically for this third book, so for Live For Me, what do you hope people get from this book, get out of this book, like when they read it?
Well, I don't like Memphis is the issue that I have with her, and what bothers me the most about it is already just about everybody from the ARC team that has read it has reached out to me to say, I identify with this moment so much, or I identify with this aspect of Memphis so much, and I can see myself being in this position, and I've done this before, and I've thought this way before, and I very much want everybody to see those things, even though I can sit here and say that those are the worst parts of myself that I've put into them, and I've put into her, that it's not, she shouldn't be living life that way, the way that she starts out living life. And it's exhausting and it's painful, and for the love of everything, keep going and find a way to make it better. So I'm hoping, and there's a couple times where Utah even points it out to her, where he will say things like, you're relying on somebody else too much to make these changes for you, and you need to be open to the idea that you can be what you need to be all by yourself. So I really would like everybody to be able to see that that's what it is, that he's there to guide her and to help her, but she's the one that has to do it. And it can be done.
Yeah, so like
hopefully I can also figure out
right, like a self-empowerment moment, but also like an understanding that like we all go through these things and you're not alone. Like
yes.
Being seen. Yeah.
Yes. And
It's so important.
the number of people, like I said, that have said they identify with her, it's upsetting to know that there are that many people who also feel this way, but it's very helpful to know that there are that many people who also feel this way, even if none of us want to openly say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important.
Even if we're only doing it in direct messages.
It's so important to have this representation in literature, in movies, like whatever it may be, for people. Like sometimes you don't know that you are struggling with something that other people are struggling with too, until you can read it or see it, and you think that, oh, this is just me and this is just the way I am. And sometimes just seeing it there will help empower people to process everything. Yeah. So good job. Definitely reads that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think another part of that too is just this, like, I'm going to try to figure out how to say this. There's like this idea that we have to, like, we live in a very like individualistic culture. And I think that there's like this idea that we have to all just white knuckle it on our own, and that's what makes us strong, and that's what makes us capable and successful. And if we rely just to use this as an example, like not that it's always a man, but it's like if we rely too much on a man, then that makes us somehow weak or not capable ourselves, or something's wrong with us, or we're codependent or whatever. But it's so much more complicated than that. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciated too, is that all of us need people in some way, shape, or form. And, if people in your life can help you become a better version of yourself, like what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
And there's not anything wrong with that. That's why we all should have a Utah. We all just need to find him. I don't know how you clone him. I don't know how you clone him and make him real, but we all need one. Because he's there to just say it's okay to be exactly this way, and it's okay to be exactly what you are and exactly who you are, and I'm just here to direct and to guide and say it's safe here for you to be that way.
Definitely. Let's switch gears one more time. We like to do a bit of a smasher pass at the end of every episode, so we're going to hit you with one. Obviously, we know the answers for Jersey and Utah, but Liz and I are curious about Indy.
Oh boy.
Smasher pass.
That's complicated for me because I know that you're like Indy. But also, she's going to listen to this, and I have no doubt, so I'm going to say smash.
Well, for us, smasher pass is more of a concept. So, I mean, we literally smasher pass horses over here, and we're not, like, talking about horses. We're talking about, like, the idea of, like, Maximus and Rapunzel, like, or even the Goblin King. I mean,
oh my God,
that's not
amazing.
even just the idea of the Goblin King. That's still a smash either way. But, like, you know, like, we're talking about, like, animals and stuff even. So, just the idea of Indy, smasher pass. And you said...
I would absolutely. I dig funny men. I can't just not. If you can make me laugh, then absolutely. Especially if you're fictional and you can make me laugh, smash.
He was such a good comic relief throughout the book too. There was such little treats, like little nuggets, and I'm like, oh, I love it.
Yes. He's necessary from beginning to end to lighten up all of the terrible moments. Again, I'm trying to keep it spoiler free with the way that this book ends. Even knowing the way that this book ends, he remains a smash, and I'm hoping that eases the pain in everybody's heart to know that.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, to go back to the comic relief with Indy. Oh my gosh, like I know that I texted Ashley to call this part out because it cracked me up so much. I can't remember if he was calling Utah or Jersey, but he calls him Papa, like Paw, like I was.
Oh, yes, it's Jersey.
So hard. I was like, that was just like the perfect little moment that just, I don't know, sealed the deal on me, like loving Indy's personality. I was like, okay, I get your humor. Like, our humor is the same.
Yes. Forcing Indy and Jersey to interact as much as possible is the highlight of my life.
Yeah, and I think you posted...
Because they're such polar opposite
and I think you
men.
posted on your stories the other day about, like, David from Schitt's Creek being a little bit indie-coded, and I'm like, yes, it's, like, exactly what I was picturing.
That's so funny.
So I love when people can conceptualize, like, as I didn't have my finger on it, and you helped me get there. I'm like, oh, smash.
And I also
love
smashed.
him so much.
I didn't make that connection myself. I had another reader who sent me a whole set of clips of him, and she said, "This is Indy in every way." And I was like, you know what, you're right, and I can't even say
like
no to that
snarky,
one, so
sassy,
that's pretty
like
accurate.
quick-witted. Love it.
Yeah. So you guys heard it here first. Ashley, you're a smash on Indy, right?
Oh yeah. What about you?
Same. Yeah, same. So we're all in agreement here.
Yeah.
Indie fan club. Through and through. So,
there we go.
I mean, do you have any last things that you want to add as we kind of like wrap this up? Or I think that we've pretty much asked everything that we kind of thought of ahead of time.
I don't need to add anything. Thanks for hanging out, because yikes, sometimes it's kind of a roller coaster in my little corner of the internet. So if you're sticking it out just to stick it out with me, I am so
Thank you so much for coming on.
I know, seriously, I'm so excited. I cannot wait till book 4 comes out. Now I'm freaking out. You sold it too hard. Sold it too hard with Daddy Utah being on the pleasure side of things. I believe but maybe a little bit.
It keeps me up at night, so I'm glad there's somebody to join me.
So yeah,
we love it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and hang out with us and chit chat all about you and your accomplishments and just you keeping us on the edge of our seat in the best way. We love it. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, you guys. Make sure you're following Ember Nicole on Instagram over at embernicole.author and check out her book, which is available now on Kindle and paperback. paperback and on Amazon, and that is Live for Me. But also, if you haven't picked up books 1 and 2 yet, just add it all to cart, okay? Make sure to get that. And then go ahead and make sure to follow, like, and subscribe anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast at Besties in the Books podcast, as well as Instagram and TikTok. We're hanging out over there too. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
I think that's it. Thanks again. And I guess we will see you guys next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday, guys. Bye.
Bye.